Hello, everyone. I'm glad you were able to participate. I am Karen Evans, and I'm part of the Quality Leadership Group. And with that, we look at GLPs, some GCP laboratories, and we're also looking into the GMP area. We're very excited today to have Eric Pittman with us. I will just go through briefly with his bio and then turn the presentation over to him. Eric Pittman currently serves as the Program Division Director for the Bioresearch Monitoring Division 2 staff, so he's in the West area. As the director, he serves in leadership in directing and managing programs and a professional staff in locations from Detroit, Michigan to Hawaii. In addition to being the director for BIMO, Eric is the U.S. representative to OECD along with the U.S. EPA partner. Prior to assuming the director position in February 2018, Eric was the director for the Division of Domestic Human and Animal Food Operations with ORA headquarters. In that position, he developed operational produce safety network, FSMA International Adulteration Rule, and the Regulatory Technical Assistance Network, among many other projects. The division works cooperatively with CFSAN, CVM, and other ORA bodies to meet the mission of the FDA. Prior to assuming the director position in December of 2016, Eric was the branch chief of the Food and Feed Program Operation Branch in ORA headquarters. The branch was staffed by food national experts and program experts in the food commodities. Prior to coming to headquarters in May of 2013, Eric served as a supervisory investigator in the FDA Chicago district. While at that station, he supervised them and mentored a diverse and talented group of CSOs, pharmaceutical inspectorate CSOs, and CSTs consisting of up to 21 people. He was responsible for the monitoring of the medical device, human, and animal drug programs and the district's tissue residue workload. He was also the pre-approval manager and the drug shortage monitor in the district. In 2011, Eric was presented with the ORA Supervisory Investigator of the Year Award. Prior to that posting, Eric served as an investigator in the South Bend, Indiana RP of DET-DO, as well as the Chicago district. During that time, he worked on several high-profile cases spanning from all commodity areas, including the largest mass seizure of a food warehouse. He has testified as a fact witness in federal criminal cases as well as in state court. In addition to his work experience with the FDA, Eric has worked in the medical device, food and drug industries, serving in various capacities such as Regulatory Affairs Associate and Director of Quality. Eric has a degree from the Purdue University and is currently pursuing an MBA. Eric, I thank you and hand this over to you.
All right. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I am sitting in Indiana, so it's still morning for me. So welcome, and thank you for joining us today. This is really exciting. This is the first time that I've been able to speak to the IQ Consortium. This actually started a few months ago. We were discussing doing some GLP regulatory training for your group, and I mentioned that this is one of the presentations that I give across the country that is really for folks that may be newer to FDA regulated commodities. It really helps you understand where we are coming from as an agency, where you can get help from, and really to help you be prepared for a regulatory inspection. So this is something that I wrote, and it's been refined over a couple of years, and I'm really proud of this presentation. I hope you really enjoy it, and I hope you learn something from it. So with that being said, I do have the chat box over here on my other monitor, so I am looking to see if anybody types any questions. If I do see them, I will try to answer them as I am going. If not, We can touch base on them after the presentation, and then if we run out of time, everybody is always able to contact me at any time. So, like was said, my name is Eric Pittman. I am the PDD, which means Program Division Director for Bio Research Monitoring West. And as it was mentioned, that stems all the way from Detroit, Michigan to Hawaii. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of inspections in Hawaii. We wish there were, but there really wasn't. There isn't a whole tremendously large amount of them. But we have a very large geography, and I do have a large staff that is across that area that focuses on all clinical and non-clinical trials. So we deal with everything from sponsor monitor inspections to institutional review board inspections. We also deal with non-clinical, so those animal studies that you may have dealt with in the past, as well as dealing with REMS, risk evaluation and mitigation strategy inspections for drugs, as well as PAID, which are post-market adverse drug experience inspections. So my staff covers a large group of inspectional types in the bioresearch monitoring or BIMO area. So we'll go ahead and get started. This is my favorite quote ever. In 1986, I will just throw out there, I'm sure there's a lot of people on the phone that are newer to the profession, but in 1986, I was actually in 6th grade, but I do remember my parents talking about this. So President Reagan was giving a speech to some farmers, and he said this: the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And that is true. I think, back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I'm the 80s and 90s, I think that was true. When FDA came in, it was scary. Not saying that it's not scary now, but I think FDA was not as quote unquote friendly as we are now. I think we interact much better with industry, so I don't think it is as scary as it used to be. So that was then. And what I say, that was then. Now we want you to make sure you have access to all the tools and the resources that we have, because we want to help you and the companies that you work for succeed. We have all of our information publicly available on our website. So we have complete transparency of everything that we use to do inspections. You can take a look at on our website. We do industry outreach, at conferences, face-to-face, or in the age of COVID, at virtual discussions such as this. All of our inspectional resources are available to you. Our investigations operations manual, which we'll talk about in a little while, some of our compliance programs, they're all out there on our website for you to take a look at. That's what we use when we're doing inspections. So we want you to have access to that so you know what we will be looking for. We also do a lot of social media outreach on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. I know I'm on LinkedIn. I know my boss, many of you may know her, Dr. Chrissy Cochran. She is she's in charge of the Office of Bioresearch Monitoring within FDA, Office of Regulatory Affairs, and I am one of the division directors. There's 2 of us, but we both report to her. We're both on LinkedIn. We share a lot of information on there. Obviously, it's not an official FDA LinkedIn account, but we do have an official FDA LinkedIn account. We have our official FDA Twitter account, as well as Facebook. And there's a lot of information that we put out on those social media platforms to help you be prepared for when we come knocking on the door. The centers, the FDA centers, so there are quite a few different centers there depending upon the program areas that you work in. We have the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, CDER. Most of you, I'm sure, are aware of that. We have the Center for Devices and Radiological Health, or CDRH. They deal with, obviously, medical devices, as well as radiation-emitting electronic devices. We have the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, so blood, vaccines, any biologic products. We have the Center for Veterinary Medicine, which deals with everything for companion and food animals, as well as our Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition, which, believe it or not, we do actually have clinical and non-clinical trials on food additives. So we do actually go out and do a lot of those. And excuse me, our newest center actually is the Center for Tobacco Products, or CTP, and that came about under the Family Smoking Prevention Act that President Obama signed back in, I believe it was 2009 or 11, but we also have the Center for Tobacco, and they actually do some clinical and non-clinical trials that we do inspections of also. So the reason why I say that is there are project managers in each one of those centers that when you submit an application for, drug, device, biologic, whatever it may be, they are there to help you. They will help you through that process of submitting that document, as well as talking to you about the types of meetings and answering questions for you as you move through the process. And when I say the divisions are available to speak to you, there's two divisions that deal with clinical and non-clinical BIMO inspections, and that's my division, which is BIMO West, like I said, Detroit to Hawaii, and then there's BIMO East, which is headed by my colleague Ann Johnson. She is the program division director for BIMO East, and she is stationed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the customs building there, and she has everything east, basically, of Michigan and Ohio there. So everything on the East Coast is hers, and everything from Detroit over is mine. So we are here to help you. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to the centers or the division. If you call me, and I will give you all of my contact information, and I don't know the answer, I don't claim to know everything, but I will get you in touch with who does know the answer so you can get the answers that you need. Each one of the product centers has a small business representative. So if you are a smaller business, and the Small Business Association has definitions for what a small business is, there are small business reps in each one of the product centers that are there to help you with some of those specialized concerns that smaller corporations and companies may have. As well as we have an ORA ombudsman. I know that is an older term. We actually call her the ombuddy. But she is also there to assist you if you have some trouble either with one of the product centers, or you have communication issues with one of the divisions. She's there to help smooth that out. So our inspections, this is what we're going to really talk about today. We're going to talk about our structure. So, I touched on it just a little bit, but we're going to go into a map so you actually kind of see everything. We're going to talk about what to do before we're there, what to do while we're there, what to do as the inspection is closing. And then we're going to talk about a few metrics, those common observations that people get when we go in and do inspections, and then what you should do after the inspection. So this is BIMO. So when you look at this, I am Division 2, and depending upon the coloring on your monitor, that could be anywhere from yellow to brown. I've heard also green in some places, but I'm Division 2 and Ann is Division 1. So we are, believe it or not, the number of firms in Division 1 just about equal the number of firms in Division 2. It's just there's a lot more concentration of bioresearch monitoring type firms in the East than there is in the West. That's why we have such a geographically diverse division. But as you can see, all of the states that fall into each of the divisions, as well as, like I said, I have Alaska and Hawaii, and Ann has Puerto Rico in Division 1. I did mention Chrissy, who is our Office of Bioresearch Monitoring Operations Director. She is actually a wonderful person. She has worked both in the Center for Drugs and the Center for Devices prior to coming to the Office of Regulatory Affairs. So we have that institutional knowledge that those of us that have always been in investigations and operations don't always get. As you can see there, my name and Ann, we are both PDDs for Division 1 and 2. Some of you may have met David Glasgow in the past. He's the Deputy Director, as well as Amy, who is our Special Assistant, and Carrie, who is our Quality Systems Manager. I do want to point out here in the bottom Well, when I'm looking at it, the bottom left of the screen, Barbara Wright is our foreign cadre supervisor. What our foreign cadre is, it's really cool. We have the latest foreign cadre within FDA. It is a group of 10 investigators, along with Barbara, who all they do all year round is do foreign inspections. They leave, they go for 3 weeks, do foreign inspections, obviously in different countries, come back, write up their reports. They're there for back in the States for a couple weeks, then they go back and they do foreign inspections again in some other country. So obviously those people apply for that position. They want to travel. They want to go to all these different awesome countries and see the different cultures along with doing those foreign inspections. So this is basically the senior management of bioresearch monitoring within FDA. Just wanted to throw this out there just so you have some names that you can put with folks. So BIMO East, Division 1, this is Ann, the Program Division Director. The DIB, or the Director of Investigations, is Christine Smith, and those are all the supervisory investigators that all of our investigators report to within the division. So just so you know who they are. And then also the same for BIMO West, this is us. My Director of Investigations, Audrey, she actually sits in Lakewood, Colorado at the Lakewood, Denver, Colorado Federal Center. And my supervisors are down there at the bottom. L'Oreal is in Detroit, and Joan is all the way out in San Francisco. So we traverse the country there. So just so you know who our folks are. So when we're doing this face-to-face, I usually, ask this, and I look to really see people raise their hands if you've ever been involved in an FDA inspection. So obviously we can't do that because we're doing this virtually, but think to yourself, have you ever been involved in an FDA inspection? Here's the big question. How prepared were you? Were you nervous? Were you scared to death that we were coming? How prepared was your firm? How prepared was your IRB, or how prepared was your non-clinical facility? How prepared was the principal investigator, the clinical investigator? Wherever you work, how prepared were you, and how prepared was your firm when we walked in there? So really, before we arrive, the biggest thing to do is be in compliance. Now, I know that is very simplified answer to, before we arrive, just be in compliance. It's not that hard. I understand it really is hard. And the reason why, whenever somebody introduces me, I always have them throw in there that, I worked in regulated industry. I worked in one of the largest medical device companies in the world as a senior regulatory affairs associate. So I submitted 510Ks, I submitted PMAs, I submitted IDEs, I sat in FDA inspections. I was also the director of quality in a startup pharmaceutical company. I mean, from ground, I was employee number 6. That tells you how small it was at the time. We grew that, from 6 employees all the way up to about 100 in a couple of years, and had a couple NDAs. So I know what it takes to be in compliance. Part of it is having the appropriate staff. You have to make sure that your staff is appropriate for what you are trying to do. You have to have the appropriate number of staff too. You can't have that one person that's responsible for everything FDA. If you're doing, 10 or 15 clinical trials, or that one person that's responsible for 6 or 7 different non-clinical trials that are going on, you have to have enough people so that they can devote the time that they need to make sure that their studies and the firm is in compliance. So that's the important thing. QA, quality assurance units, things like that, QC, they're a cost, and FDA knows that. Not only is it a cost in laboratory, it's a cost that, really doesn't pay the bottom line. It's not operations, but it does keep your operations moving, and that's why it's important to make sure you do have that appropriate staff. You want to make sure you're providing training to staff on regulatory requirements. So they need to know what's in the regulations. They need to know what's in 21 CFR. They need to know, Part 11, what that means, 812, 512, 312. They need to know what all those are depending upon what commodity areas that you're working in. If you're working in drugs, devices, biologics, whatever it is, they need to know those regulatory requirements. If you're dealing with protocols, they need to know what's in the protocol. And not just, hey, do me a favor, read this protocol and you're trained in it. You need to provide them specific training on those protocol requirements. In addition to that, you need to make sure you have appropriate processes and procedures that your staff is aware of, that they know it's there. They don't have to have them memorized, but they do have to know where they are and be able to find them when they're doing whatever processes are covered by those procedures. You want to make sure that your staff has open communications with you as management, with you as QA, with you as QC. You want to make sure that that open communication is there so somebody, on the floor or, a medical professional can come to you and say, hey, I don't think this is right, or I think we need to adjust this. Make sure that they feel comfortable bringing that communication to you. Make sure they can bring those problems to you, so you can address them before we walk in, and we have to address those. And then not only facilitate open communications internally, but we want you to facilitate open communications with the agency. So that's one of the reasons why I am here. That's one of the reasons why I'm on camera. So you see me, so you know I'm a real person. You can put a name with a face. You might want to call me sometime and talk to me, so you'll at least know who I am and what I look like. That's part of facilitating that open communication. Once you submit that new drug application or the pre-market approval application or the 510K clearance document, talk to your project manager within the center. Make sure you answer or ask those questions and get answers from them. We've talked a lot about training. Part of it is not just making sure that your staff know what they have to do, but why they have to do it. And it's not just because FDA says we have to do it. That's not why. That's not the why that I'm talking about. The why that you have to really let your staff and your companies know is, why are we doing this clinical trial this way? We are doing a clinical trial or a non-clinical trial. So at some point in the future, patients, real people, it could be your mom, it could be your dad, your sister, your brother, your spouse, your partner, your grandparents, your aunt, your uncle. Somebody may get that drug, device, that food additive, that biologic, that vaccine. Vaccines are in the news right now. And you want to make sure that the clinical or non-clinical trials were conducted correctly, because that product is going to go into somebody's body. And it could save somebody's life. It could extend their life. It could prevent disease. It could cure a disease. That's why compliance matters. It's not just to, give a ticky mark that, yes, we are compliant with 21 CFR. It's to make sure that the product that we are developing and selling to the public are safe and effective. And that's why it is, because these products that we make, although it's not always easy to see, end up in a person or end up in an animal or end up in a companion animal, a pet. So that's why compliance matters. It's not just I'm compliant with FDA. This is eventually going to end up in a person. And then you always assume that any study can be inspected. So when we call you, we're going to call you and say, hi, I'm so-and-so with FDA. I'm going to be out there next Monday and we're going to do an inspection on this protocol. You never know what protocol we're going to call and tell you we're going to inspect. And even though we tell you that we're going to inspect a certain protocol, if we see issues or need to look at other things, we may look at other protocols or other studies while we are on site. So always remember that. We can look at anything that has been submitted to the agency in support of an application while we're doing an inspection. So be prepared for an inspection. Have procedures how to handle an inspection. I always tell the story, and I get a good laugh when I'm face to face with people. I can hear the chuckles. I know I'm not going to hear them today, but I still do inspections. Yes, I am the division director, but I still actually go out and do inspections, mainly to keep my skill set, but also to still ensure that I know what my staff is dealing with when they're going out and doing inspections. So I will be going out and doing inspections as soon as the surveillance inspections within FDA are back open, because I don't want my staff going out there and doing inspections with COVID while I sit at home. I will go out there and do inspections with them also. But I say that because I called one time. I called to pre-announce an inspection, and I said, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm with FDA. I'm calling to pre-announce an inspection. I need to speak to somebody to talk to them about my pre-announcement." And they bounced me around, put me in voicemail. I called back a few hours later. They put me in another voicemail. I left my phone number, my email. Please call me. I'd like to talk to you about this. And I just happened to call on the Friday before I was going, because I was flying from Chicago and I was going out to San Francisco to do this inspection. And I finally got a hold of somebody in the risk assessment group within the organization. And I said, "Look, I called last week. Nobody has called me back, but I'm going to be there on Monday. So I just want to let somebody know." Nobody knew, or they didn't believe that when I called and said I was with the FDA, that I was actually with the FDA. They didn't call me back. So the reason I say that is make sure you have procedures on how to handle inspections. When somebody calls and says they're with the FDA and we're going to show up and do an inspection, give them the benefit of the doubt. You can look all of us up to see if we work for FDA. You can ask for, supervisors' numbers. You can look us up. There's plenty of different databases out there that have all our names on there. You can look us up on hhs.gov and fda.gov. But have procedures on how to handle when we call and deal with us. So have mock inspections. Have your QA departments, or have use your sponsor audits or other internal audits as a tool to be prepared for when we walk in the door. We as FDA are never, in general, unless there is a specific reason, going to ask for internal audits. So we want you to use those internal audits as a tool to make your processes and procedures better. So make sure that you're doing mock inspections that are very detailed. And then, like I said, when an investigator calls, know to whom to route them. It really does help because when we show up, we have our credentials. So, we're going to show up, we're going to issue a 482, and we're going to show you our credentials. So you'll know that we are actually with the FDA. So don't worry about that. So before we show up, know our metrics. So this presentation will be provided to you. So no worries about that. But this is a link that you can click on, and it'll go to the top inspectional metrics for all of our BIMO inspections. So it is going to tell you, if you do clinical trials, it's going to tell you the top 7 or 8 observations that we see in FY19. If you do paid or REMS or GLPs, it's going to tell you those top 5, 6, 7 observations, so you can see what FDA is seeing when we go out and do inspections. It's important that you also read warning letters. Warning letters aren't as prevalent as they used to be. In, I believe it was 2004, when President George W. Bush went in, there was a change in the way warning letters were issued, and they have to go through a different process than they did prior to President Bush, the second President Bush. So there are less warning letters that are issued, but they still are very important for you to read, for you to know what's in those warning letters. So if you combine the top observations with the warning letters, you can see what FDA is focusing on in a year, and you can see the problems that we are seeing out there. When you click on that link right there, it'll take you to this screen on FDA's website. So you'll be able to find all of that information there. Know what we know. That is, I'm going to say that a whole bunch of times during this presentation. That is part of the reason why I'm here. I want you to know what we know before we come and inspect you. So this book right here, it is, I'm going to grab it. I have the 2019 version because the 2020 version is actually just online right now. It hasn't been published because we haven't been to the offices. This is the IOM. This is our Investigations Operations Manual. This has all of our field procedures, everything from issuing 482s to how we write our EIRs. This is publicly available. If you click on that link right there, it will take you to the electronic copy of this document on fda.gov. I suggest that you take a look at this, specifically Chapter 4, if you deal with bioequivalent inspections, so you deal with generics and things like that. And Chapter 5, because that talks about what we are going to do during BIMO inspections, as well as how we write our inspection reports or our EIRs, Establishment Inspection Reports. So that's all of our procedures that we have. You can take a look at it. It's publicly available. I will caution you, you can buy them. Don't pay for it. It's online. It's there for free. Some people basically take what we put online, print it out, and put it in a binding and sell it for $300-400. Don't waste your money. It's free online at that link right there. Know what we know. So we talked about the IOM. The next thing I want everybody to know about is the Compliance Program Guidance Manual, or the CPGM. It is a compilation of all of the compliance programs. Don't worry, we're going to go more in depth into that supplement our IOM and provide specific procedures and investigational guidance procedures to our staff. It's broke down into each of our commodity areas. So as you can see there on that screen, biologics has their own compliance programs, BIMO, devices, drugs, food and cosmetics, and vet med. They all have compliance programs. They're available for you to take a look at. What's in these compliance programs? If you have never looked at one, I beg you to take a look at one today, because you'll be amazed at the information that is put out there just for you to know. They are at that link right there. You click on that link, you'll go to this page on our website. This is what a compliance program looks like when you click on the first page. Obviously, I had to modify it a little bit to get it to fit on the screen, but this is what's in there. It's broke down into 7 sections. It talks about the background, so it gives you the law, the regulations. It will, in some of them, it gives you the link to the preamble, which for those of you that may not know, the preamble is an excellent source of information on why regulations were written a certain way. Part 2 talks about implementation, not too exciting for people outside of government. Part 3 is what you want to know about. Part 3 is how we do our inspections. It goes, part 1, it goes A through Z. It tells you exactly what we're going to do. It tells you what documents to have ready. It tells you what we're going to ask for. It tells you how we're going to do things. So I beg you to take a look at that, because it's going to tell you exactly what you need to know when we walk in, so you won't be surprised. So you can make sure that your processes, procedures, and program meet what we need when we come in and do an inspection. There isn't too many analytical samples collected during BIMO inspections, except for BEQ, those bioequivalent generic inspections. Regulatory and administrative section, that talks about, warning letters, untitled letters, those types of things. References and program contacts in section 6, those actually have email addresses, telephone numbers, and people's names. Yes, the copy on here says date of issuance 2008. It actually was updated in 2018, and I actually have a brand new version that will be coming out probably within the month or so for this specific for this specific compliance program. And then section 7, you don't really need to read about. It's just what our headquarters groups does. But between the IOM and these compliance programs, it's pretty much everything you need to know before we get there, what we're going to look at and how we're going to do our inspections. So there's everything that we train our staff on, you now have, and you now know where it is to find it, to be prepared for us to come out there. So when we come out, obviously we're going to give you the international sign for a telephone call. We're going to call you and tell you that we are pre-announcing. In the time of COVID, during this pandemic, every inspection in every commodity area will be pre-announced during the pandemic. In general, most BIMO inspections are always pre-announced because we're dealing with physicians and things like that. Like I went to pharmacy school at Purdue. Even when we go out and we do, samples at pharmacies and things like that, we will pre-announce because, we want to make sure that the pharmacist is there that can get to the clinical supplies and things like that. Very few inspections on the BIMO side do we do unannounced. There are a few of them, but GLPs usually are one of them that we just show up. So for those of you that are involved with GLPs, you get the joy of the unannounced inspections most of the time. So when we show up, obviously we're going to knock on the door. We're going to show you our credentials. I would love to show you our credentials, but I cannot because it's against federal law for them to be photographed, and obviously we're recording this, so if I hold them up, it would be a photograph, and it's actually a criminal offense to do that. But we will show you our credentials. It has our picture. If you've never seen them, just like if you ever watched X-Files, or anytime the FBI shows up, they show this little thing with blue writing and their picture on it. That's what our credentials look like. It's got our most recent picture along with our signature and the commissioner's signature that allows us to enter and do an inspection and gives you positive ID of who we are. So when we show up, we're also going to give you something called an FDA 482, which is a notice of inspection. And I'm not going to talk too much about law, but under 704D of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, anytime we do an inspection, we have to provide a written notice of inspection, which is the 482, and present our credentials, which are our credentials that we show you. And then it is a legal inspection. Then we can come in and do an inspection in a reasonable manner, in a reasonable time, and in a reasonable manner. So when we get there, we're going to issue that. We're going to show you our credentials, and we're going to talk to you. We're going to tell you what we want to do. We're going to tell you why we're there. We're going to tell you what we want to look at. You already will know a little bit of that, because if it was pre-announced, we're going to tell you. We're going to give you our schedule. In general, knock on wood, most of our inspections go less than a week. There are some types of inspections that will go more than a week, depending upon how much we're looking at. A lot of GLP inspections will go more than a week, for the plain and simple fact is, when we come to do a GLP inspection, when the centers find out, the Center for Vet Med may want us to look at something. The Center for Biologics may want us to look at something. So when we show up, we may end up having 5 or 6 different protocols that we need to evaluate while we're there. So, but in general, most of our inspections are less than a week. We are going to ask for you to explain the roles and responsibilities of all your staff, as well as how the study was conducted. We want you to explain your records, your organization. I'm talking your organizational structure, as well as how your organization is set up. Who reports to who, where do documents go, where are documents stored, how are things processed, and what type of access we are going to have. So one of the things that we are starting to look at right now is looking at read-only access to computers when we go there. I know if you deal with the European Medicines Agency, they require you to give them read-only access to computers. We're looking at that right now, not as a requirement, but as something that we will do, because right now our policy is stating that we will not touch anybody's computer, but we know, in this day and age, we have to update a little bit, so we are taking a look at that right now. The whole point of this opening meeting is to ensure that you and our investigator have clear communication paths, and you know what we're going to do, and we know what you're going to do. So when you have that discussion, feel free to ask any questions that you need to know. Ask when the investigator is going to go to lunch, what kind of breaks they're going to want to take, and it's perfectly okay to offer them coffee, to offer them water, to offer them, a can of soda or pop, depending upon where in the country you're at. It's perfectly fine to, offer them that. Obviously, you can't buy them lunch or anything like that, but, drinks and things like that are perfectly fine. Most of the time, we bring our own stuff, but, depending upon if you're in a hospital or something like that, sometimes it's a little difficult to get around. So, but that's what the opening meeting is. It's just to make sure that everybody is on the same page and we know what's going to happen. So while we're there, we really want somebody to be accessible to answer questions and provide copies. So when I say copies, it can be either a hard copy, an actual piece of paper, or you can give us documents on a CD, a DVD. I know I'm pushing the reins of technological capability now, because both computers that I have sitting on my desk, neither one of them have a DVD burner on them. We can accept USB drives. Just know that if you give us documents on a USB drive, at the end of the inspection, we will keep that USB drive. That is something that we do, because it becomes part of the evidence. But we are also looking at right now box accounts, cloud-based secure accounts that are HIPAA compliant and all that kind of fun stuff. We are looking at that right now, and I'm doing a trial with some of my investigators across the country to see how well that works with different industries. I put that second bullet there, or the second sub bullet there. Don't delay unnecessarily. So the reason why I tell you that is, 99% of people, when they know we're coming, they're going to have all the records right there. When we do show up unannounced, or if you can't find a record, some people try to delay us or think that we're going to forget that we asked for something. I promise you, we don't forget when we ask for something. If you need time to find a record or retrieve a record or to provide an answer, just tell us why. I mean, in general, we look to have documents given to us in a reasonable amount of time. If things are off-site, 24 hours, 48 hours is usually reasonable. If stuff is stored on-site, a couple hours is reasonable. If you run into additional delays, just tell us, because when you start to delay, whether it is nefarious or not nefarious, we start to think that there's something wrong. Either that maybe the documents aren't there or there is a bigger issue. So our mind starts to wonder what's going on. So just tell us what's going on. If you can't find something, just tell us. If it's going to take you a little bit longer, just tell us. That's the biggest thing. That's what I want people to know. Every day during the inspection, there will be a daily wrap-up. All of our investigators across the country, and tells her investigators and my investigators, are told that they are required, as long as you want one, to have a daily wrap-up session with site management. So whoever you want there, they will tell you what they found during the day, if there's going to be any 483 points that they found during the day, if they have questions, if they have concerns, how far they got in their plan. What is the plan for the next day? When are they going to show up? I expect most of our investigators to show up when you show up. I always tell them, if the firm shows up at 8 a.m., show up at 9 a.m., give them an hour or so, just to get things started for the day, and then come in. I don't expect my staff to show up at 1 p.m. and leave at 4 p.m. I expect them to put in, a full day doing an inspection, because it's the easiest on us. It's the easiest on you, because we reduce the amount of total days that we are there when we are there a full day. So those questions, concerns, and progress, that is also for you. You can ask us questions. You can give us concerns. If you have concerns, bring them up. You can question our progress, or what the plans may be, or what type of documents, or what we're going to want to look at the next day, so you can have them ready. So as the inspection starts to close, we are going to schedule a closeout meeting. And the reason why we schedule it's during the time that we're there. It's not that we're going to come back the next week or 2 weeks later. But we want to make sure that the responsible parties and the knowledgeable parties are there. So if we're talking about a clinical trial, we want to make sure the clinical investigator is there. If we're talking about a non-clinical, we want to make sure the principal investigator there, along with the study director. We want to make sure all of those folks are available to be there. So that's why we'll do that. Sometimes we'll do it really early in the morning if we need to. Obviously, we deal with medical doctors a lot. Their schedules are sometimes very difficult for meetings and things like that. So we will have a closeout meeting at a hospital if we need to, wherever we need to do that, to have that closeout meeting. If there are observations, those written observations, that's that dreaded FDA 483, that inspectional observations document. If there is one that we issue to you, make sure that you understand the observations, that they are clear to you. When we write them, obviously they're clear to us, or we wouldn't provide them to you. But maybe we used words that are a little bit different than you use, so you might need to get some clarity on that 483. So feel free to ask questions. Do you have additional documents that might support your position that were not given to us during the inspection? Obviously, if you provide us documents, at the last minute while we're issuing the 483, we're not taking a 483 point off the FDA 483. However, we will document in the Establishment Inspection Report, or the EIR, that you gave us these documents, although we didn't have a chance to review them during the inspection. Do you have a verbal response to each one of the observations? We're going to go one by one through each one of them. Well, some people will read them to you. Some people will go one, do you have questions on number one? We will show you the evidence that we have to support those observations, and you can ask those questions. We're going to ask you, what are you planning on doing about this? What are you going to do? So we will ask you that question. We're going to document what you say, and we're going to put it in our EIR. So yes, we're going to ding you when we find something wrong, but if you say you're going to fix something, we're going to document that in the EIR to show that, yes, you understand what we found and that you are going to correct that. So, and then we're going to ask you if you plan on responding in writing. Hint, you're going to hear me say that last one 4 or 5 times. So after the inspection is ended and we walked out, if there was a 483, you should respond in writing. Why do I say you should respond in writing? We'll talk about that here in just a couple minutes, but you're going to mention, or you're going to see that it's there a few times. You are under no law or obligation to do so, but it will help. If you do respond in writing, recap the observation, provide any explanation you need, and describe those corrective actions. So if you don't have a 483, but there are discussion items, the same thing happens. Consider a written response and send it in to us for us to evaluate. So they'll be reviewed by the investigator, their supervisor, and the product center. They will be considered if any administrative or regulatory action is contemplated. So thorough responses help. The 4 C's are mine. So, this isn't something that's written down. This is just something that I always put. Make sure that they're clear, concise, they're compelling to the reader, and that they are complete. And I know a couple of those kind of mean the same thing, but make sure you hit all 4 of those and you will have a great written response. If you respond, please do so within 15 business days. If you're in my division, you send it to Obymo West. If you're in the other division, you send it to Obymo East. The reason why, if you send it within 15 days and we are planning on issuing you a warning letter and your response is adequate, you have the power with that response to stop that warning letter from being issued. So that's why it is so imperative to send in a response to any 483 observations or discussion points. So real quick, I'm just going to go over some metrics. These are all online. These are some terms that you may want to know. I hope that I have spelled out any acronyms that I've used, but these are just some acronyms that you might want to keep when you're dealing with FDA. Clinical investigators, this is the results of all of our inspections in FY 2019. We did 600 domestic and almost 180 foreign clinical investigator inspections. And as you can see, about 3/4 of them were NAI, which means no action indicated, which means there wasn't a 483 issued. So that means in general, a lot of people are doing good work out there. 1/4 of them were, ballpark VAI, voluntary action, or OAI, where there was a warning letter issued. So as you can see, most folks are doing a really good job out there. What we keep doing is we want to close that pie. We want to make it all green. That's what our goal is. We want to put ourselves out of a job by making sure that those pies are all green. Here is the common clinical investigator inspectional observation. So this is what I want you to see, and we're going to go through a couple of them. I'm not going to read them. You can read them yourself. And these are also found on our website that you can take a look at. So those are common clinical investigators. Then we go into IRB. If any of you deal with IRBs, you can see in general about 75% again is NAI out of 140. So that's awesome. That means that green is getting bigger. The pie is closing. Here's the common observations that you can take a look at if you deal with IRBs. This is what we find when we go out and do inspections. Sponsor clinical research organizations, same thing. You can see in general about 75% all over the place are about NAI. Common observations, there they are again. You can take a look at that. If you are involved in one of these organizations, you can see what we are seeing and address them in your policies and procedures. Sponsor investigator, this is a difficult one. When you're the sponsor investigator, it's about 50-50 on here. Obviously, there's not a lot of sponsor investigators. We only did 13 inspections last year, but it was about 50-50. There was no warning letters, but about 50% actually received FDA 483 last year, and these were the common observations that you can take a look at. Obviously, I know y'all can read. That's why I don't go through each one of those. So, in general, violations can be avoided. As I mentioned, it's It's really just ensuring that your staff understand the protocol and the regulatory requirements. Make your training effective. Don't just make it a check mark. Don't just do that. Don't just say don't read and understand. That drives me nuts, because people can say, yeah, I read it and I understood it at the time, but they don't really know what they're supposed to do. Make training effective for your staff. Depending upon who you're dealing with, because we deal with, physicians, we deal with PhDs, we deal with people with master's degrees, things like that. Don't just make it the standard GCP or the GLP training, but make it tailored to your study requirements, and make sure you include that why that we touched on, because we're not just caring about the regulations, we care about why the regulations are there. We want to protect human subjects. We want to protect animal subjects. We want to make sure that the medications and devices and additives that are out on the market are safe and effective. All of our investigators are well-trained professionals. We have medical doctors, we have engineers, we have pharmacists, we have nurses, a whole bunch of folks. Each site is different. So when our investigators show up, help them understand how your site works. Because remember, 1 week they're with you, the next week they're going to be someplace else, and they have to learn a whole new set of words, a whole new set of definitions when they go. So if you help them learn, it makes everything move faster. What do you do if there's a disagreement between the investigator and your study staff? Ask them a question. Ask them to explain it. We all understand this is an adversarial relationship. We don't want it to be, but it's just the nature of the beast. I mean, we come in, we're inspecting what you're doing. If you have issues with what the investigator has done, talk to them about that. If you still have issues, ask to talk to the investigator's supervisor. They will not retaliate. I promise you. My staff sits in on this presentation sometimes when I give it. I give this presentation at SOCRA, and I've given it at SQA also. And they've heard me say that I will not accept any retaliation on any firm from our investigators, nor should you expect it, or do you deserve it. If you have questions or there's disagreement, call and talk to them. The best contacts to know, the FDA 482 will list the district office that you are a part of. Doesn't really mean much anymore since we've done program alignment. What you really need to know are the next people. The program director, that's Chrissy. The deputy program director, that's David. The PDD, that's myself and Ann. And the DIBs are Audrey and Christine. Those are the people that you need to know. Those are the people that if you have a question about an inspection that you can reach out to. And the ombudsman, those are the other important person to know. They hate when I put this out there because people use it, and that's why I put it out there. These are our direct numbers. If you call me right now, my phone will ring because my desk phone is sent to my BlackBerry, well, my iPhone now. But these are our direct desk lines. You can call us at any time. We may not answer the phone, but we will get back to you as quickly as possible. Those are our real emails. You can email us at any time. I ask you to reach out to me. You got a question? You just want to introduce yourself? Call me and talk to me for a few minutes. We can definitely make time to do that. Our buddy is Erica Catherine. If you have an issue with the investigator that you can't get resolved by talking to the DIB, myself, or Chrissy, this is the person that you call. This person, Erica, is independent. She doesn't report to ORA, whatever. So just know that. You can always reach out to this person. And that's me. That is my flag picture. I did that myself. So eventually one day I'm going to have somebody take a picture of me like that. But until that time, that's me. This is all my information. Please feel free to use it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take some questions.
Thanks, Eric. Karen, did you want to start with some questions?
So Eric, I know you see them. Do you want me to read them to you, or do you want to just go through?
You know what? I don't see them actually.
Oh,
I
am
not seeing them. No, all I see is to me a private message, and I'm not seeing any of the other ones. I was kind of waiting for them to come through, but I don't see any.
I'll just start from the beginning and read them to you until we end our time at 12:30. So how would your advice differ if the company is a contract manufacturer, GMP, versus a clinical site or a GLP lab? How has remote auditing shifted your team's approach?
Good question. Good question. This, obviously, we are all dealing with COVID-19. I mean, I'm sitting down here. I work for FDA. My wife actually is an engineer with the Army Corps of Engineers, and she's sitting upstairs doing work at our kitchen table while I'm down here. We have had to adjust the way we are doing things. We have been doing inspections all along. The clinical, the non-clinical folks, we have been doing inspections this entire time. We haven't been doing as many inspections because obviously a lot of our work is in SoCal, Southern California, Texas area, those places where there were large outbreaks and where we actually couldn't get people to go to them. So we have done some remote desktop assessments. And I know you are probably wondering what that means. That's just the word that we use to describe what we are doing. It's not an inspection. It is a way for us to review data without coming out to your facility so that we can still move applications forward. We have done quite a few of those. Actually, we have 4 of them going on this week between Division 1 and Division 2. Our number of inspections on the manufacturing side, the GMP side, and the pre-market, the GCP, the GLP side, this past few months has dramatically changed the way we do things. We've done a lot of things on the telephone. We've done a lot of things like this via webinar. We actually did a remote, well, I don't want to call it a full GLP inspection because it wasn't. We did a part of a GLP inspection remotely like this because we had to. There were application dates and things like that. So we were able to use those box accounts and things like that and transfer documents securely. It's been difficult. We're trying to work with firms because, some firms don't want us to show up. In this day and age, your firm may be a small firm. You may have populations working with in your firm that you really don't want a lot of people dealing with from the outside. So we're working with individuals in companies to see if we can come on site, as well as, if you don't want us to come on site or you're not going to be on site, we're working on the remote assessment. So I will tell you, it looks like, knock on wood, it looks like surveillance inspections are going to start up in July again. So what we've been doing up until now are those mission critical, those things that are like new molecular entities, COVID, obviously, treatments and things like that, drug shortages, device shortages, things like that. Those are the ones that we've really been focusing on during this time. But I can tell you this, every inspection that we do from here on out until the pandemic is over will be pre-announced. And there is a script, actually, that our investigators will read to you and that will talk about, if you have requirements for us to enter your facilities. We will take our temperature and, provide that to you. We won't sign health documents and things like that, but no more than we would at any other time of the year. But we will, take temperatures and things like that and let you know about, quarantines and if we have been exposed to anybody. So, and we also ask that from you. But it really has changed the way we do things. I know that was a very long answer to a short question, but it has changed. And I think we are adapting relatively well because, with the pandemic, we had to figure out what we were doing because we've never been in this situation before. The last time a SARS hit, the bird flu, it was a big deal, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't a shut down the country big deal. We were still able to go out and do inspections, but this one really took, I think, everybody by a loop, threw us all for a loop. So, next
Great,
question.
thank you. So this one, somebody had a surveillance inspection in 2017, GLP, and given the enhancements in the FDA inspection program since then, are there any new elements that we can expect during those routine surveillance inspections?
Good question. So not really. So I'll tell you, the next time that you're really going to see a major switch in the way we do inspections. And I don't want to say a major switch. When the new GLP regulations come out, I think that's when we will really adjust the way we are doing things. And I don't think I've read the new regulations multiple times. I mean, they've been published at least once. I don't think it's going to really wholesale change the way we do things. But some of the things that we are doing differently, obviously, when the regulations were originally written, a laptop like I'm looking at right now, and I got my work laptop and my personal laptop. The computing power in these two machines wouldn't be able to fit in the house that I'm sitting in right now, let alone, our iPhones that have more computing power than the Apollo 11 did. I think, one of the major things that have changed is our willingness to accept electronic documentation and things like that. So I think that is the major change right now. I think we are more willing to interact with you both pre-inspection and post-inspection. I think that's changed over the years too. But I think the major change that you will have seen is our interaction with electronic documents and our willingness to accept electronic documents and things like that. So I think that's the biggest change right now.
Great, thank you. So there are a lot of questions here about, because most of us in the GLP environment are used to unannounced inspections. So right now, during the pandemic, you've said that everything will be announced.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. That is 100% correct. We are going to pre-announce everything during this pandemic. So we are not going to just show up on your door and knock and say, hey, we're here. That is for two reasons. It's for your safety and for our safety. So now just because we are pre-announcing doesn't mean that you can say, no, you can't come, because that still will be a refusal of inspection. However, we may need to modify the way we do things. We may need to meet in an off-site location. We may need to address the way an inspection is done at that point in time. And that's why we're pre-announcing it. So our staff will actually call and talk to you to see what your processes and procedures are, so that we know before we walk in. So, feel free to discuss that with the investigator when they call. That's the biggest thing. So, but yes, as long as there are,
So I know a lot of us in that, just to dovetail on that question, a lot of us are working from home. There's site closures in areas. When we speak with the inspector, is there an expected timeline for inspection? I mean, what's reasonable? Is it announcing 2 days ahead, or do we work that out with the inspector?
In general, it's going to be about a week ahead of time. And with that being said, if for some reason your facility is completely shut down, then you just have to explain that to the investigator, and we may need to, update what's going on. So we may need to update our process or our procedure depending on what your firm is doing. If there's nobody there, then it's going to be a little bit hard, and we can't honestly just make you show up if there's nobody there. We have done inspections. I will tell you this, since this pandemic has happened. Obviously, GLPs are a little bit different. I mean, because, we go in and we want to look at animal care facilities and things like that. There are possibilities at this point in time, depending upon what's going on with your locations. We may have to split the inspection into two different visits. Maybe we do part of, record review and things like that, and maybe we're going to have to come back at a later time after the pandemic and look at animal care facilities and things like that. So it's really talking to the investigator that's coming, what's going on in your facility, and we can try to come to some sort of agreement. You're not going to stop the inspection, but we may have to modify the way the inspection is done during this point in time. So it's like I said, it's just really important that, and that's why we're pre-announcing everything, so you can have that discussion. And if there is something strange or unique about your location, the investigator may have to go back and talk to their supervisor or the DIB or even myself, and we'll come up with something that'll make it work. So.
Great, thank you. The next one is, do we as inspection hosts have the ability to decide what form of data documentation is provided, paper versus electronic, or is that the inspector's decision?
You can give it to us either way. But I mean, there will be, if you are using electronic means, 21 CFR Part 11 allows us, if you're making regulatory decisions off electronic documents, that we get to look at the same form that you get to look at. So while you can print things out and show it to us, if you are making regulatory decisions based on electronic documents, we have the authority under 21 CFR Part 11 to actually look at those documents or that information in the same format that you look at it in. So, if most places right now are hybrid systems, so some of their stuff is electronic, some of it's still paper. But in general, if you are using electronic records, and that might be your building management system. I mean, your heating, your cooling, all that kind of stuff. Most of that is controlled electronically now. If we're going in and we want to look at your BMS system, and we want a dump of the temperature and humidity in an animal room for the past 6 months, unless you are printing that out every day and making regulatory decisions based on a paper copy, we have the authority to have that electronic copy under 21 CFR Part 11. So hope that answers that.
Great, thank you.
I can now see the questions. I finally figured it out. So there we go. I see them now. So
Okay,
I see
I'm on
there's
the
a
one
whole
that says
bunch.
about the warning letter.
Okay,
Those
so
warning letters are being issued. What specifically has changed, and how are the letters issued?
okay, so warning.
Or
So what
less?
has changed when George Bush required a change in warning letters? Remember, this has been going on now for 16 years, so it's nothing that's changed within the last couple of years. All warning letters now have to go through the Office of Chief Counsel. So that goes through not only the division, it goes through the center, and then goes up to our Office of Chief Counsel. And that is when a warning letter is then issued. But that does not mean that, no regulatory actions are taking place. So, just because those warning letters have to go through the Office of Chief Counsel clearance, we have other mechanisms of administrative action, such as untitled letters, which is a warning letter without the title, warning letter on the top of it. That still means that you are official action indicated, or OAI. We can do regulatory meetings instead of warning letters and things like that. So the difference really between, a warning letter is immediately releasable once it's issued. So that goes up on our website. Untitled letters are not, they are releasable under FOIA, but those don't automatically go up on the website, nor do regulatory meetings that we have with firm management. So those are some of the other tools that we have to deal with that. And also what we're trying to let people know, just because a warning letter isn't issued doesn't mean that we haven't taken action on something related to your inspection. And obviously we're going to let you know, but if we go in there and we find that there's falsified data or there's data integrity issues, maybe not intentional data integrity issues, but maybe unintentional data integrity issues, the data from that part of the study may be thrown out. We'll at least tell the sponsor, and then the sponsor can communicate that with any CROs or other organizations. But just because a warning letter isn't issued, there are other activities that are taken, such as like data being thrown out and things like that.
So another part of this that I missed is that they felt that there are less warning letters being issued, and why is that?
Because it goes up through the Office of Chief Counsel, and that is why we have a time frame for warning letters to be issued, and because it goes through at least one extra level of review, sometimes that time frame is broken or not met. So therefore, a warning letter won't be issued if the center and the Office of Chief Counsel doesn't meet those regulatory timeframes. So that's when it could go down to what I call an untitled letter, or it could be a regulatory meeting or something like that. So It's just that extra level of review and things like that. That's why there isn't as many warning letters as there were in the past. Because you can definitely see, you look at like 2004, 2005, it went from hundreds to dozens within a year or so, and then they have been creeping up as we go. But in general, warning letters in BIMO, GLPs and in the clinical side, there aren't a tremendous amount of warning letters just historically in this arena because of other things that we can do. Obviously, we don't accept data. We can do those types of things, mid-pose and whatnot. But there have been a few significant warning letters on the GLP side lately. I'm sure you've all seen some of them that have been out there. They're on our website. You can take a look at them. But that's one of the reasons why. So.
Great. So the next one down is, do you expect discussion points to be responded to?
Do I expect them? I don't expect anything. I suggest that people respond to discussion points because let me tell you how this works. So we submit it, and there have been firms. I don't want to say there's been a lot of firms on the BIMO side, but on the manufactured side, there have been tremendous amounts of warning letters that have been issued based on discussion points. So the reason why I say that is it's imperative to respond when we find something incorrect or non-compliant during your inspection. It's imperative to respond to it. Because what happens is if we have a discussion point that we discuss with you at the end of the inspection, that goes in our EIR. So it's in the EIR that we found this and this wrong and made it a discussion point. Just because it's a discussion point doesn't mean that it couldn't have gone on the 483. It just means in the investigator's opinion at that point in time, that observation didn't rise to the level of being placed on the 483. However, when the Center for Drugs, Center for Devices, Biologics, whomever, reviews that discussion point, they may have felt that it should have gone on a 483, and there could still be some regulatory action based on that discussion point. So that's why I suggest strongly that you respond to not only those written observations, but any discussion points that are presented to you during the closeout meeting.
Okay, the next one, if you perform a clinical trial inspection at a clinic, it is common for you to request documents from the sponsor. These documents would not be expected to be in the clinic site file, ? And if yes, how do you present the 482 to the sponsor, or do you present a 482 to the sponsor?
No, we do not have to present a 482 to the sponsor, because if we're there looking at, the clinical investigator, if there is any communication between that clinical investigator and the sponsor, that would be covered under the 482 for the clinical investigator. So any of that communication, any of the documentation that the sponsor provides to the clinical investigator would be covered under that 482 to the CI. So we do not have to give another 482 to the sponsor. So. Sorry, I felt like I said that very fast. I apologize, but we do not have to give an extra 482.
All right, this one, I'm not sure if it was changed. It says, if a company experienced an inspection but no EIR was issued, I think it might be 483 was issued. Is there something the company can do to obtain the inspection outcomes? Because I believe there's always an EIR out there, right?
There should always be an EIR. Now, what I will tell you, under Field Management Directive 145, after 45 days after the inspection is closed, which does not mean 45 days after your inspection is completed. It means after the file is completely reviewed by the center, 45 days after that, you are supposed to get a copy of your EIR. So I'm going to go down two paths on this one. If you have not got your EIR, and it's been 6 months since your inspection, send an email to that OBIMO box, whatever division you're in, and request your FMD 145 copy. The FMD 145 copy, which is usually the unredacted copy of your establishment inspection report, is sent to the most responsible person at that location. So we don't send it to QA, we don't send it to whoever. It actually goes to the most responsible person at the location inspected. So that would be the study director at the GLP facility, that would be the CI at a hospital, that we're looking at a clinical trial. So it's the most responsible person, not necessarily the highest level of management. So if it was a 483, if you didn't get a 483, I will tell you one thing, that means you're NAI. Because if you look at Field Management Directive 86, anytime that an FDA 483 is issued, that means either your inspection is VAI, voluntary action indicated, or OAI, official action indicated. So if you have not gotten, if you did not receive an FDA 483 at the end of your inspection, then you can assume that it is no action indicated. Or you can actually send in a FOIA request, because that is actually something that has to be FOIA'd, your inspectional status. We will send you a copy of the EIR, but you'd have to FOIA that. But in general, if you get a 483, then it's either voluntary or official action indicated.
Great,
So,
thank you. We have a couple questions here. Will the slide deck be made available? I think you said yes.
I have no problem with that, because I've already found it on YouTube. So it's all cool. You guys can use it. And that's why I put the links in there. That's why the links are actually in there, because I hope folks will take a look at it and click on those links and go to those locations. So it will definitely be there. So, well, now there's a big, large question here. So that's why I'm reading it here. So.
Okay, so I'll read it for the audience. Are facilities global support GLP studies as a test site only? So they're only serving as a test site. These GLP phases are entered into our master schedule. In addition, non-GLP work is conducted within our facility. These studies are not entered into our master schedule. What is the agency expectation? Do we need to enter all studies into the schedule, considering there are no GLP study directors and only principal investigators responsible for their phases? We have taken a risk-based approach for the company.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good question. I get that one a lot. Obviously, if it's not a Part 58 GLP inspection or actually an EPA type GLP, it doesn't have to really be on the master schedule, so we wouldn't expect that. Now, what would happen is we may ask you what other, non Part 58 studies are going on at this location, and just to make sure that they shouldn't be on that schedule. So, they are not required to be on there, but we still will ask some questions about those non-GLP inspections, or those non-GLP studies that are going on. And when I say non-GLP, and when I say it, I mean not Part 58 studies. So we will still ask you about them to make sure that they should not be on that list. So
Great,
that
thank you.
should answer the question.
21 CFR Part 5821, CFR 58.105 A and B mention characterization and test and stability for test articles. What type of documents do the FDA expect for this? A document that indicates that the sponsor is accountable for this, or is it expected that the testing facility have all documents as well?
It is expected that when we show up, you are going to be able to prove to us that that test article is characterized and have the stability information for it. So, I mean, if the sponsor does it, that's perfectly fine. But you should have that information there on site for us to take a look at, or otherwise be able to get it for us to take a look at. So, because that is one of the things that we are going to be making sure. Now, like I said, if it is a sponsor requirement, that's perfectly fine, but we do need to make sure that test article is characterized and there is a stability on there. So it's always nice to have some sort of documentation of who is also responsible for it. If the sponsor is responsible for doing that, it's good to have some sort of documentation to show us that, but we also need to know that it was done and that you are using a characterized test article.
So the next one is about, do you have any GLP metrics? I know you showed those pie charts. Do you sort of have an estimate of what GLP look like?
I do have GLP, and if you go to that, there's a link that will take you to the metrics, it says metrics, and there's a link to it. The FY19 metrics are up there, and there is a slide on there for GLP. And my apologies, I forgot to throw that one back in here. The last time I gave this presentation was to a clinical group, so I took out the GLP, and I apologize when I sent it in. I forgot to throw that slide back in. But that slide, that same exact pie chart, is available online at the metrics location. So if you click on that, it will do that. And I will tell you one thing that we are doing that I didn't want to spend time on talking about because I wanted to make sure we got the questions, is those common clinical and common GLP observations that you will see when you take a look at that. We are actually taking those and breaking those down into further granularity. So we want to be able to provide you, and we're going to start providing it this year. So for the inspections that were done in FY20, which I know aren't going to be as many as normal, we're going to show you more granularity on those top clinical observations. So, or clinical and GLP in observations. So like on the clinical side, you know, one of the ones is you failed to follow the protocol. We're going to break that down and tell you the major ways that people did not follow that protocol. Because if I just tell you you didn't follow a protocol, you have no idea what part of the protocols people are messing up on. You just know that it's kind of difficult to figure out what part of a protocol is being missed. So we're going to break that down. That's something that I've been pushing for, and we finally were able to figure out how to do it this year, that we would be able to give you, industry, more information to help you become more compliant. So look for that at the end of this calendar year, beginning of next calendar year, when the FY20 metrics are being sent out or placed on the website. That will be there. So, but to answer your original question, the GLP is on there. If you click that metrics slide, when you get the presentation, it'll take you to that spot on our website.
Great, thank you. So the next one, I know we have about 5 minutes left. It was about, is there an opportunity to harmonize GLPs globally? And I'm sure people also are wondering if you could give them an update on the new GLPs for the FDA, US.
Well, obviously everybody knows they were published once. Right now they are undergoing final staff clearance. So I can't give you an exact date on when anything is going to be issued. I know I have 3 staff members right now reviewing preambles and the final rule and comments and things like that. So we are getting closer, and I know we've been saying that since 2010 when this all started, but we're getting very close. In fact, if I could show you, I can't. I have the new rule right there, but at least the status of it right now. But we are getting much closer. So we are getting there, and we hope to have it out shortly. Which I know shortly in government terms is a lot different than company terms, but we're getting much closer than we were before. So.
And do you think this would ever happen globally, or?
Globally, the best that I can tell you is that, when you look globally, a lot of countries develop their regulations based on FDA's regulation. Obviously, if you look at, I talked about the OECD. If you look at all the OECD member countries and the OECD general principles, those were based on the FDA GLPs. So I don't think there's going to be a major push to harmonize GLP regulations across the world. However, I want to remind everybody, the OECD, the member countries, there's about 38 of them plus a few accession countries and adherents. Those countries that, some of them, Canada, I'm just going down here, Australia, France, Germany, when they do inspections, or when there are GLP studies done over there, they're done under the French authority, they're done under the German authority, and those are under a concept called MAD, not the mutually assured destruction MAD, but the mutual acceptance of data, that MAD. FDA will accept the data under a different regulatory scheme in these member countries, since we are part of OECD. So that's a little bit closer to the harmonization, and I think that a lot of people are looking for, but I don't know how close we will ever get to having like one set of, or an ICH guideline on GLPs that everybody deals with, that everybody adheres to. But I think with OECD, those member countries, I think there's a lot of harmonization that way that I think makes it a little bit easier for industry to deal with. So hopefully that answers. I know that's a non-answer, but
that's okay. So we probably have another 10 or so questions here, and our webinar is about to end. Would you be willing to take a look at those questions and possibly, working with Mahalaya and getting those together?
I can. Yeah, some of them are pretty easy, so that's not a problem. A few of them I might not be able to answer, but I see a few people on here I know asking questions. But we will take a look at these, and we'll try to give an answer, and that way you can present it to your members. So.
Okay, that would be perfect. All right, well, I would just like to thank you for taking the time to spend with IQ today. We were very happy to make the connection with you and work with you on this webinar, and hopefully maybe do some others in the future.
Yes, and I just want to throw this out there. I am extremely serious, and please, if you have questions, email me, give me a buzz, whatever you want to do. I will talk to everybody. I might not be able to do it the same day you call, but I will return phone calls. I will respond to emails and things like that. So please reach out to me if you do have questions. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.